Today we're going to be reacting to 2 tips that could save your life. So let's get into the video. So this
hey guys,
probably
what's
going
up?
to be
It's
some
Charlie
good
here, and
tips.
today we're going to be looking at 10 tips that could save your life. You never know when you may be in a dangerous situation where you need your life saved. Well, here are some tips to keep you very safe in the modern world. And also some tips for survival in pretty much any situation. Before we get into it, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too.
I think they're going to put in the video.
Coming in at number 10, we have two-way mirror. So what could be creepier than someone looking at you in a two-way mirror? Believe it or not, every year there are hundreds of reports of two-way mirrors in changing rooms and bathrooms. But how can you tell whether it's a two-way mirror or not? Well, there is actually a little-known way to see whether you're looking in a two-way mirror or a one-way mirror. It's called the fingernail test and determines whether you're looking at a two-way mirror or not. All you need to do is place your fingernail on the surface of the mirror. If there's a gap between the reflection and your finger, then you're safe, as you're looking in a regular mirror. But if there's no gap between your finger and its reflection, then you're looking in a two-way mirror. And you better not do anything too embarrassing in front of the mirror. So, before you go into a bathroom or dressing room, make sure you do the fingernail test. You never know, it could save you a lot of embarrassment of someone looking at you through a two-way mirror. Next up is elevators. So, elevators are good for getting around in tall buildings. They definitely save you a lot of time. The only problem with elevators is sometimes they stop when other people need to get in and out. But what if you're in an emergency situation and you cannot stop at another floor? Well, here's a trick to make an elevator into an express elevator. This is a trick used by police to get to floors quicker. Of course, police can't just stop the elevators when they need to get to a major situation. So, if you're ever in an emergency, here's how to use an elevator without it stopping. First off, hold the closed door button until the doors close, and then keep holding it. Then press the floor button you want to go to and do not let go of the number or the closed door button until the elevator begins to move. This actually allows you to go straight to that floor without the elevator stopping. This works on every single elevator, but only use it in an emergency. It's very selfish to use otherwise, so make sure you're in an emergency before using this. Next up is brake failure. So, what could be scarier than driving downhill in your car, then reaching for the brakes and realizing they've failed? You may think you're absolutely done for, but don't worry, there is actually a survival tip to actually make your brakes work after they fail. All you have to do is start pumping the brake pedal fast and hard. This builds up brake fluid pressure. Of course, another thing you could do to aid this is to use the parking brake. And if you run out of all options, you could scrape your car against a guardrail to slow it down. However, this will ruin your car and could go wrong, so only use that as a last resort. Next up is car underwater. So, let's say your brakes failed and you didn't know those survival tips from before. You end up in a lake or pond, and you may think you're done for. But one thing you can do to escape a sinking car is make sure you open your doors as soon as you hit the water. It's good to get the doors open before any water pressure makes it impossible. If you can't do that, then use the metal part of your seatbelt to break the window. But if both of these fail, make sure you stay calm and just wait for the water to flow into the car. Then once enough water is in the car, the pressure will equalize and the doors should open automatically. Next up is crayon candles. So this is a survival tip for anyone going out in the wild, or if you're in an area with a power cut. In power cuts or the wilderness, sometimes all the electricity can go out. And this of course does include lights. Now, many people use candles, but what if you don't have a candle? Well, something most people do have lying around somewhere in the house is a crayon. Believe it or not, you can set fire to a crayon like a candle and it will stay lit for ages. Crayons are made of wax, much like candles, making them great fire burners. They emit a very strong amount of light and really do help out in a survival situation. But these aren't just good in power cuts. It's also recommended that you bring some matches, a lighter, and some crayons out with you when you go camping. That way, even if all the wood gets wet and you can't make a fire, you can still have light using crayons. It seems silly to use kids' crayons to help you survive out in the wild. But they really do work and have been used by survival experts for years. Next up is elevator failure. So, we've already seen how to make an elevator skip floors in the event of an emergency. But what if something terrible happens with the elevator itself? We've all seen in movies where elevator shafts fail and the elevator falls down the shaft. If you've ever seen an elevator shaft, you may think falling down one of those things means you're done for. Well, there's a big, widespread misconception that if you jump the moment the elevator hits the floor, you'll somehow decrease the impact on your body. However, this is a massive myth and will likely cause you to pass away. Whoever spread that myth really is pretty evil. And also the tip makes no sense, seeing as you can't see through metal, so you won't know when to jump. So Charlie, what do you actually do to survive an elevator fall? Well, nothing is guaranteed, but the best way to survive it is to lie on your back on the floor and cover your face. By lying flat with your back on the floor, this distributes your body weight. This makes it much less likely that you'll thud on the floor. You need to also cover your head and hands, as there likely will be falling debris. Luckily, elevator accidents like this are incredibly rare, but should it ever happen, do not jump on impact. Instead, you need to spread your entire body on the floor and cover your head and face.
Hit your head.
Next up is snake venom. So let's say you're out in the wilderness and all of a sudden you see a snake. You unwisely don't avoid it, so the snake strikes and bites you. Now you have venom inside your body and you could pass away. You may have seen on TV shows that the best bet is to suck out the venom, but much like the jumping and falling elevator tip, this is total bogus. You should actually never ever suck venom out of a snake bite, as it's very dangerous. Instead, it can actually help to spread the venom in the bite and also damage the skin around.
Oh. Stupid stuff. Goodbye.
Around the bite. Some people think that the person sucking the venom out will also pass away, seeing as they've ingested the venom. However, that's incredibly unlikely, and they would be fine. However, you might not be. So how do you actually treat a snake bite? Instead, what you really should have is a suction device for removing the venom. This suction device is specially made for snake bites, and is much more effective than sucking it out. Some think that using a tourniquet is the best bet. However, many would advise against that as well, as tourniquets can damage nerves and blood flow. For example, one day in Tennessee, a passerby helped a farmer who'd been bitten by a snake. He used a tourniquet, however that actually ended up taking the farmer's life. This was because his blood pressure dropped so much. So instead of using a tourniquet or sucking it out, use a suction device. And of course, seek a hospital as soon as possible. Next up is key self-defense. So when I say key self-defense, I don't mean basic self-defense. I mean self-defense using a key. Let's say you're walking down a dark alley one night and you see a creepy guy behind you. It may be your instinct to grab your keys kind of like this. This way it makes kind of a spiky brass knuckle around your hand. But believe it or not, this is not the best way to do it. Keys can actually be used as a good self-defense mechanism. But the technique known as the Wolverine, where you put your keys in between your fingers, is not a good idea. Instead, you should do things a lot more basically. Simply grasp your keys in your fist like what's shown on screen. This is a much better way to defend yourself. Then you simply need to jab anyone who comes near you. However, some self-defense experts say that keys aren't the best way. They say keys create an illusion of safety, and if they're near enough to use keys, you're better off doing something like pulling their hair or poking them in the eyes. Next up is fire starting. So, we know a good way to make light is to set fire to a candle. But what if you have no light or a matches to start a fire? Well, have no fear, there's actually a very simple way to generate flames with almost no resources. All you need is a battery and 2 small pieces of foil. You can even use a gum wrapper in many cases. What you need to do is place each end of the foil at both ends of the battery. Then the foil will heat up and burn. You'll soon manage to get a flame and then simply use grass, leaves or twigs to get the fire going. You can actually use things like Doritos and other corn chips to help the fire start. It's pretty surprising, but Doritos are very flammable. Also, if you have any hand sanitizer, that helps start fires too. Despite it being a liquid, hand sanitizers are mostly made of alcohol. Of course, alcohol is very flammable, so this also helps when starting fires. Next up is code word. So let's say in a very unlikely situation, you're kidnapped. You may think there's no way out, but many kidnappers actually let their hostages contact their family and friends. They often do this to make sure your family doesn't worry and call the cops. They may tell you to call or text a family member saying that you're alright. But in this situation, you can use that to make your family aware that you've been taken. What you need to do is make a code word. For example, your code word could be I'm fine. Then if you call a family friend or text them saying I'm fine, they'll know that something is wrong. This is a very simple method and all you have to do is agree to it beforehand. So make sure you invent a code word with all your family members. It may sound slightly too proactive, but you never know when it could save your life. Just think about how amazing it would be to free yourself from a situation like that using just a code word. Believe it or not, there have been many instances of this actually working out, including one where a hostage simply wrote on a pizza receipt a special code. So definitely try and make some code words with your family as it could save your life. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the most useful survival tip on this list. I think it's the elevator tip, as that is so helpful in an emergency. However, with great power does come great responsibility, so don't use the elevator tip when you don't need
in
to.
case somebody's
It's important
trying
you
to
only ever
kill
use the
me.
elevator tip in a big
70%
emergency and not for convenience. If you guys want more amazing
That's
videos
okay.
including tips, check out my second channel. There'll be a link to that on screen in a moment. But as always, thanks for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.
Wow. Bye.